What's up, beautiful people, and welcome back to your majestic comic book review video where I say words and you, the magically delicious, listen. It is I, your crazy Nicolas Cage, your steward of Gondor, your genius, billionaire playboy, basic YouTuber philanthropist, SuperCliff. And would you kindly hit that like and subscribe button for every little bit helps in this majestic, powerful YouTube world. And today, guys, we are picking back up with DC's Infinite Frontier with Green Lantern, issue number 2, written by Jeffrey Thorne, with the art drawn by both Dexter Soy and Marco Santucci, with the colors by Alex Sinclair. And away we go. Alright folks, so this picks up 10 or so hours after the last issue, and in the last issue we saw a Guardian of the Universe get assassinated by anti-Oa fanatics. Legit, little blue Guardian dude got sniped right out of existence. I shouldn't be laughing, but, well, I'm laughing. Anyways, now, as a result of this, the entire summit, those affiliated with the United Planets, are in chaos. And thus, this is where we see John Stewart, and he's sending out a universal message to all of the Green Lanterns because, as the Corps leader, the responsibility falls on his hands, and to let those among the Corps know about recent updates. And so John, he tells every single Lantern that nearly 10 hours ago, as Oa was being accepted into United Planets, the planet suffered a terrorist attack where several Green Lanterns died whilst protecting civilians and protecting Oa. Now currently Oa is safe, with the overall loss of life kept to a minimum, and as medical and structural repair teams make their way, the Lanterns rounded up the magic-based terrorists and stuck them within holding cells. And as they wait to become interrogated, John mentions that everyone's ring is about to receive data detailing the terrorists' origins and their goals. Now John makes his second point, saying that yes, though we were able to counter the primary attack, there was a second attack, which of course resulted in the death of the Guardian. However, once the United Planets apprehended the shooter had an accomplice. And from there, this is where we see a dragon duking it out with the Green Lanterns. Now, whereas a dragon wouldn't typically prove to be much of a challenge for the Lanterns, the only issue is that this dragon's hide is made out of magic. Therefore, the Lanterns, their ring's powers are essentially useless in dishing out any real damage against it. And as the Lanterns are fighting this dragon, Teen Lantern is alongside them, trying to help out, using her gauntlet to fight the dragon. But Guy Gardner, you know, the most polite Green Lantern ever, just kidding, Guy's a straight up dick. Guy, he tells Kelly to sit back because you're really not helping out right now. You're kind of in the way. Now, eventually both Guy and Kilowog, they formulate an idea because with the Green Lantern rings not working against the dragon, rocks and other forms of wreckage do. And so Kilowog assembles the honor guard, and from there, we see all the Green Lanterns basically trap the dragon using rocks, encasing it similar to how Spider-Man webs up his bad guys. And this is when we return back to John Stewart, and he's making point 3. Which is that Oa is now an official member of the United Planets, which means that the Corps is going to be reconstructed. But what does that mean? What does it mean for Oa and the Lanterns? Now the fourth point to which John makes is to have all the present Lanterns on Oa prep up and to dress in their mourning gear, because they're about to attend a funeral for the Guardian that was killed. And this is where we pan over to a giant funeral procession that's being held on Oa, and one of the Guardians gives a speech. And real talk, I thought back to the Oscars, back when Joaquin Phoenix won the Best Actor for Joker, where he ended up talking about cows and how we steal cows' babies and take their milk. Yeah, well, the Guardian speech here is kind of similar in its delivery, but it actually makes sense. And by the way, Joaquin Phoenix, terrific actor, A++, but the guy, he's fucking nuts. Now, the Guardian, she's talking about how mammals, primates, and various forms of sentient life come from cultures where death is the end, and thereby enact various rituals towards dealing with death. Well, for us Guardians, we have our own practice, and this is where we see the coffin of the dead Guardian lifted upward into the central battery, where the battery seemingly dissolutes the body in order to have the Guardian's energy flow throughout all of Oa, flow throughout the entire universe. Afterwards, the Guardians address all the Green Lanterns, and she tells them all that despite the action of these terrorists, they were still able to join the United Planets. However, the flip side is that at the end of the day, the Green Lantern Corps, Oa, holds a tremendous amount of power, and that causes worry to many member worlds. Therefore, as a result of joining the United Planets, the Guardians have promised to stand equally with the other worlds of this union, and with that they have promised to give up some of their territory to scale back the Core's reach. Therefore, 1,200 sectors belonging to the Core will be vacated. Their jurisdiction will be ceded to the United Planets Brigade. Previous Core hierarchies will be erased and replaced with new mission objectives. And the Green Lanterns without sectors will be reassigned, and that change begins right here, right now. And from there, we see all the Lanterns' rings start to go off, each Lantern getting assigned with new missions and locations. And just like that, like your typical cliche CEO, the Guardians take off and let their workers fend for themselves. Now, nobody is happy about this. Everyone is extremely pissed off with this abrupt change. And so because he's the Core leader, John takes off and discusses the situation with the Guardians. Now John, he tells the Guardians that they should have handled this news better. Like, you guys literally dropped a giant deuce on top of us without giving a head's notice. Not cool. But we also have to remember that these little blue bastards, to quote Guy Gardner, they're socially inept, so, they're very much straight to the point. And they're definitely not the sort of folk where if you were to ask them if you look fat, they'll tell you yes, but they'll also tell you why it is that you look fat. So they're definitely not your comforting type. And as this conversation continues, John is wondering about the status regarding the human lanterns. Why is it that the Guardians have chosen to spread them thin throughout the entire galaxy? And so the Guardians, they let him know, asking John if he ever wondered why. Why is it that out of all the planets within the galaxy, why has Earth produced 7 Green Lanterns within the span of a single human life? Plus, why is it that the Guardians decided to choose Oa as their home? Why is Mogo a sentient world? Well, the answers to those questions are because they're vital. Oa, Mogu, Earth, they're crux worlds. And every universe holds 7 crux worlds. Planets where wonders happen to spur growth and evolution and to preserve life. Now, when it comes to Earth, Earth is the crux world of heroes, and once the current pantheon of the new gods fades away, Earth will become the so-called 5th world. However, with the destruction of Krypton and John's failure to save the planet Yangshi, only 5 crux worlds currently exist. Now, John mentions that though 5 of the crux planets have been assigned with 5 Earth Lanterns to protect them, neither him nor Guy received a planet. But it's here where the Guardians inform John that his duties lie within the dark sectors, regions between known space and the Promethean galaxies, and it's an area where the Guardians cannot see into. And the reasons are because the sectors contain barriers that are artificial, and so they wish for John to investigate in hopes of extending protection to the beings within. Now, John's willing to go, but he mentions that the area is a lot for just one Green Lantern to navigate through. However, the Guardians tell John that he won't be venturing in alone. Rather, he will lead 1,000 Green Lanterns on his quest to navigate the dark sectors. And so John, he accepts the role as quest leader. Now, as we see all these lanterns using their rings to create a gigantic ship to house them for their journey, we see John and Teen Lantern talking about the situation, about how John's heading out to venture into the dark sectors. But while John is off doing his thing, he tells Kelly that Simon will keep an eye on her while he's gone, and that the Guardians don't need to inspect her gauntlet before she goes back home. And from there, John and his lanterns depart Oa and begin to head out into hyperspace. Meanwhile, back down on Oa, as Teen Lantern, Simon, and the squid alien friend who Kelly met in the previous issue are hanging about, Kelly notices something strange about the main battery, and that something's off about it. Then, suddenly, out of freaking nowhere, we see the main battery detonate, causing a huge explosion, seemingly devastating Oa. And while death and destruction occurs, beings from all over the universe are watching the destruction that's happening on Oa. From the Vanishing Point to Vega, over to Warworld, people are witnessing this disaster. Now, while this is happening, we see a Green Lantern making way through the system, traveling like a bat out of hell, arriving at Oa. Now, this Green Lantern's ring is attempting to pick up any fellow lanterns within the sector, but sadly the ring fails to pick up a response. And as she's making her way through the rubble, trying to find survivors, she comes across a green bubble. And this is where we see Kelly, who used the power of her gauntlet to create a shield in order to protect Simon and her friend from the explosion. However, they both seem to be lifeless, or at least incredibly injured. And once Kelly looks up, we see that Far Sector's Green Lantern, Joe Mullein, is there, and that she's currently the only Green Lantern left on Oa. And that, folks, was Green Lantern, issue number 2, and hot damn, Jeffrey Thorne continues to do an awesome job with constructing this new status quo for the Green Lantern Corps, and how this new structural shift is affecting the Lanterns. I love that the story is having John lead an expedition into an area that's called the Dark Sector. The name alone adds for a ton of mystery, and so I'm definitely curious to see what John manages to discover. Teen Lantern gets to do a lot here as well. Her whole struggle and wanting to be recognized as a Green Lantern, but at the end of the day, she can't because a ring hasn't chosen her. And so having this identity issue for Teen Lantern definitely leaves me wanting more from Kelly. And who knows, perhaps she manages to prove that a ring doesn't necessarily make a Green Lantern. But hopefully Thorne can manage to find some effective way in telling that sort of story without having to make the rings feel irrelevant. Plus, this book does a lovely job in connecting the events with that of Green Lantern Future State, with the main battery being destroyed. And considering the fact that Green Lantern Future State was, in my opinion at least, dope as hell, I'm so down to see whatever it is that Thorne has planned down the road. The art by both Dexter Soy and Marco Santucci was also great, and both artists are able to work well with one another, blending well perfectly, and the colors by Alex Sinclair continue to be spot on. Overall, Green Lantern issue number 2 was a fantastic issue, leaving me with so many questions as to what's going to happen, and I can't wait for more issues to come. Green Lantern issue number 2 gets a 9.5 out of 10. Giggity goo.